Yo, what's up guys? First video of the year. It was already recorded in the previous year, but it is 2026. Happy New Year, and I'm probably hangover right now, so I already pre-recorded this. Nice. So we're going to be looking at a global net 5 tier list for 2026. We're going to be grading all of the units by these values that you see here on the screen. So it's not just RTA, it's not just Arena, it's not just Siege. It's going to be everything a little bit in there, and then see which unit has the highest value. Currently, there's still the event where you get 35 units and you have to select one. You can use this tier list to actually get that. With all of these tier lists, as mentioned before, on tier list for me, I like to use the 195, blah, blah, those kind of numbers. It's the same thing as triple S, double S, S, and those kind of values, but it gives me a little bit more flexibility of put in between the tiers if I so please. As I did do last year for the Sonya, to put that one tier above on a 101 better than anything out there. So actually recapping a little bit, what was the tier list looking like last year? Well, these are the things that you saw from last year. Sonya was sitting solely at the top, definitely did fall a little bit down. Same for Camilla, I would say, but also at the bottom is something that's very interesting. Draken Warrior right now is crazy good in Temple of Chaos. Vendhan is super good in RTA, arguably even in arena defense. Shiho is crazy good in RTA right now. And Fire Jennifer is really good in Siege right now. So we do see a few units that were sitting all the way at the bottom, now sitting at the top. So if those units will happen with the current tier list, I will go in the first common. Every balance patch, if there's some hard hitter or some hard nerf or some hard buff or anything like that, since this video is going to be for all of 2026, I want to keep like a little bit of an up track of saying like, okay, this unit got a buff in January balance patch, therefore these and these units will get X, Y, and Z new tier. So if there's a new balance patch, I will give like a few days later in the first comment the update of all of those. So with all of that said, let's just get into the tier list. As mentioned, I'm going to be listing them by all of the criteria that you see here on the screen. Feel free to disagree. That's definitely a thing. But let's just see where we place them. So Camilla, first of all, I also will mention if the unit should be kept as dupe, where to use it, what teams to use it, and what kind of builds to put it on. So first of all, Camilla is mainly still used for arena defense, but you don't see it that much in arena defense anymore. It is still mainly used for siege offense, but you don't see it that much in siege offense anymore. I would still classify Camilla as a good unit. RTA, you also don't really see her too much anymore. Still pretty substantial good unit right there, but it's definitely not worth the 100 tier anymore in my opinion, because it's just used everywhere a little bit less. For builds, you definitely want to go Violent Nem or Violent Will, or well, mainly those two. Speed, HP, or speed, or like triple HP is an option. Speed, crit rate, or crit damage HP is an option if you want to put it more towards like a damage and an RTA focus. You can go for Destroy on it as well, so a lot of options right there. I would keep one extra Camilla right now, so 2 Camillas is probably fine, and it will place her at a 90. Moving on next to a Vanessa. I would say Vanessa's kind of an 80 for me right now. It's mainly just for arena defense and a little bit for RTA. It's not super common. Most common build for arena defense is going to be still triple shield or double shield will. I would recommend going triple shield in most cases. Definitely do not go for violent. If you go for RTA, it's mostly violent will or despair will or swift will or anything of those kind of sense. You could go for crit rate in that sense. But for arena, it's mostly just like full-on tanky. Moving on next, Katarina. Actually, Katarina did make a little bit of a comeback because of Temple of Chaos. I would say only in the Temple of Chaos on water, it's a best of slot. Anything else, you probably want to revert back to the Draken Warrior. And in anything else, you don't really see it all too much. So I would give Katarina just a 60 because it is once every, 5 months that you use her in Temple of Chaos and then she becomes really good. But outside of that, she's not really used. And it's just a full nuker build. That's pretty much just all there is to it. Farad, very good in the early game value still. You do have a few units that do actually replace him. But it's also pretty strong in a siege offense right now. I could see it being used in arena offense. Siege offense that's common is with the Homunculus and Hyannis, and then everything on Swift. So I think that has a lot of value right there. And then also the Verados on Swift. PvP arena offense, you could still go for the team that is a little bit older with the Varad, Anavel, Ritesh, and then going for Leo next to it. It's not as common because you got some better options out there right now. So I would say the main value I'm feeling for him is the siege offense that I just mentioned that I feel like he's very strong in. But for that reason, I just give him an 85. He still has some early game value, yes. But there's a lot of options like Tyrone or other free-to-play and 4-star units that make it better, where early game value is also what you definitely wanted early game. And then I would say maybe not really. So I'll give Varad an 85. Most common build, if you use it for siege offense, is just Swift. You want to go high on accuracy, high on defense. You don't even need the crit rate. But I would not keep any dupes of it. Zyros last time around was also placed pretty high, but I feel like Zyros is still one of the better nukers for arena offense. Siege, you could kind of use it for Siege, but I would say he's just arena offense. You could use him in like TOA kind of scenarios. But I would say Zyros is just an 80 for me in the current state of the game, because there's a lot of good AoE nukers right now. Plus, you don't really need to go for AoE nukers in arena offense right now. There's just like the Lamila, the Tricks, those kind of things. You definitely want to go for high attack on him, because he does do extra damage if he's high on attack. And you want to go crit damage on the 4, because he's a guaranteed crit with that as well. And most of the time, either Swift or Fade or Rage or anything of that kind of good stuff. Jemire, definitely a unit you don't see too much. The only thing is Jemire is a best in slot / must for the Temple of Chaos with the Draken Warrior, and that makes him pretty good. He can be used for siege offense, where you go for the siege offense of the light homunculus plus Jemire plus a nuker. But since the dark homunculus is that good right now, used for the Temple of Chaos, so you don't really want to switch around too much, Jemire value in siege also fell off a little bit more. I used to always use the Ian Jemire with the homunculus combination, but nowadays I always have the dark homunculus. I use it with the Varad, so my Jemire is used a little bit less. So I would give Jemire just a 70. His build is super all-round. I would still say that for TOA, I actually did not mention TOA in here to Hell. I would say just TOA Hell, because the other ones you can clear with whatever. He does have a little bit of value over there. So I would say Jemire is a unique best in slot for reset. So I give him a little bit of credit over there for that. Most of the time you just want to go Swift, crit rate on the 4, crit damage on the 4. He does have good scaling by speed and enemy max HP. So I just put Jemire on 75. He's more of like niche PvE things, some niche PvP things, and that's kind of all of his value out there. Moving on next to Taeor. I haven't seen Taeor used in quite a while. I could see Taeor being a last pick in RT. I could see Taeor being some kind of pick in Siege, but to be honest, I haven't really seen Taeor all that much. Biggest issue for him is just the low base speed. Like, sure, he's a good nuke on the S2, but that is about as crazy as it gets. Most of the time, you want to go crit damage on the 4, attack on the 6, whatever build you want to put him. I'm not too sure. Rakan, however, I would say Rakan is getting a little bit more traction in RTA. In Siege, I haven't seen it too much. In Arena, I would have seen it a little bit less, actually, the last few days. So I would say just for RTA, I would give him a 70. It's just kind of an RTA unit these days. He's a little bit of everything, but not really crazy good anywhere. If you want to put it to RTA, he's still rocking the low base speed, which is a little bit bad. He might be good into the Venton meta, because if he gets silence, he still goes for collapses, which is not that bad, I would say. But then again, if he's really like the perfect position for that, I am not too sure. So I'm going to put him at 70. Most of the common build is like just speed, crit rate, and HP on the Rakan right there. Lagmaron, I have seen some siege offense with Lagmaron, some arena offense with Lagmaron, mostly based on a chilling and then chilling Lagmaron, just sniping something out with the S2, guaranteed crit. But you do have a few extra units right now, such as the Agrias, that also just snipes way too hard on any hit they do. So Lagmaron, because of that, becomes a little bit less interesting. But it can still be used here and there. Most of the time, just a swift, crit damage, attack kind of style. But I will give Lagmaron a 65. Moving on next. Wait, do we actually miss Sigmarus? We do miss Sigmarus. Let me actually add in Sigmarus real quick. Okay. Adding in the Sigmarus, I placed the other Sigmarus. Isn't this the Sigmarus of the enemy that's at the boss thing rather than your normal Sigmarus? I have no clue. Either out. Weird-ass looking Sigmarus, you get the idea. Sigmarus is currently a best in slot for a Giants team, and that gives him some value again. However, if you don't have him skilled already, you could probably rather keep to the Tish. So I'm just gonna put Sigmarus on like a... I would give it a 65. It's just one Giants team, and there's better options out there, so it's very specific to that one Giants team. And of course, he's just built on full damage over there. Purna is a little bit all-round in all PvP scenarios. Outside of that, not that much. So you're not going to see that much Purna. I would just go like speed, crit damage, attack in most cases. Can be used in siege defense, but it's not really that crazy good. Tesha, however, Tesha I would definitely give a decent bit of value to. It is pretty good in a lot of these AoE clear stages for like Labyrinth and those kind of things, and Subjugation. Plus, it is Kairos and it has super high beginner value. Like, this thing is crazy, crazy high beginner value. So I would say that Tesha is probably an 85 for me. It definitely does fall off a little bit more end game. But no, I'm actually going to put Tesha at 90. Where did I place Tesha last time around? Did I place him 95 last time around? I would say since there's a few more options right now for teams that don't revolve around Tesha, maybe it's a little bit less this time around. But I would still give Tesha high value for getting him to the right build, getting your first Giants team in, and those kind of things. Aerial. Haven't seen an aerial being used all too much. We had it a little bit in arena defense. Some siege offenses sometimes kind of use it, but it's really not that common. Most of the time, you just build it super tanky, and you don't even care about like what kind of set, to be honest. Moving on to a Valkyrja. Valkyrja siege offense RTA is being used a bit here and there, but it's not like a crazy amount. So I would give Valkyrja a 75. It's definitely not a slot where it used to be like a main core unit in a certain meta. Currently, it's not really that position, so most of the time you still want... I would say current meta, it's more 100 res unit, and you don't really go for crit rate on the 4. You don't really go for damage on it. It's just 100 res, providing the immunity, trying to sack, those kind of things. So I'll give that a 75 to Valkyrja right there. Eladriel is a little bit more used for... well, not arena offense, for siege offense, but it's also kind of uncommon. I would say that this one is a little bit more unique because it's a really good unit for a Labby final boss. Like, that's the only argument I would say. He's pretty good as a best in slot over there if you need a revive for that. So that's a little bit higher value if you do want to auto that, so I would give the stats to that. Most of the time, just file plus whatever. Doesn't really matter that much. Moving on next to Oracles. Oracles, I would definitely say Praha. I've seen some Prahas in RTA, but it's super uncommon. Like, if you were to pull Praha right now, I would definitely not focus on Devil Wanting her or anything. Siege offense, arena offense, all of it. It can be used, but it's not really recommended. So I give Praha just a 65. Juno. Juno, however, do we place Juno in 90? That's the big question, because it's still good in RTA. It's actually pretty substantial current RTA meta. Siege offense, it's pretty good. Arena defense, it's no longer as good as it was last time around. Last year, it was a lot better in arena defense. PvE things, not really best in slot. So I think I'm going to give it 95 because of the lower in value in arena defense. But still pretty substantial good unit, which is pretty unique in its own slot, which can provide some solos and those kind of things. Most of the times, it's built on speed, crit rate, and HP. You can also give it for, like, the normal set is Despair plus Nemesis or Revenge. You can actually go for a Vampire as well. I would say in the current RTA state and maybe even in Siege state, I would say that Vampire, also speed, crit rate, HP, feels stronger on her. But you maybe don't really have those runes because you're farming more Giants than you're farming Necro. But 95 on her for that reason. Sierra. Sierra is still a RTA meta unit. Arena, you don't really see too many bombs in Arena. Like, it is a possibility, but most of the time there are better options out there. Same for Siege, it's not super common out there, so it's mainly just an RTA unit. So for that reason, I would give her... Where did I place her last time around? I gave her 95 last time around. I'll give her 90 this time around. Just because it's not super, super common, but it's still pretty strong, especially with Oliver being nerfed a bit. She gets a little bit more of the all-round value where she gets pretty interesting. Moving on next to a Annabelle. And I would say Annabelle is actually fairly all-round. I could see arena offenses where you just slow Bruiser, where she's good. Next to like a Leo if you don't have your Alaya or something like that. It is very good in Siege offenses still. It is very good in RTA at the moment. So I will give Annabelle a 95. Also for early game, it is your jack of all trades that could do a little bit of everything. So in her case, you definitely want to go for 100 res in most PvP scenarios. And then just bit of accuracy, speed, HP if you can fix the resistance otherwise. And that's just the main thing you want to go for. Oh, also the Sierra, a little bit of backtracking. You want to go bomb damage on her. So speed, attack, attack. You definitely don't want to go crit rate on the 4 anymore. That's old style. You want to go for HP and attack on the Sierra. But back to the NFL, you just simply want to go for a lot of stats in there, high speeds. It is nice if you use her in RTA if she would move in front of your other units, so she can actually perform a cleanse in case that things do get stunned out. So Annabelle, pretty much the jack of all trades, very all-round unit, and therefore she gets a high value on this. Moving on next is Rika. It's not a bad unit for siege offense. In arena offense, it's not super common anymore. There's better options to the dot team than a Rika, but she still has some decent value where she can be used here and there. RTA, she can be used here and there as well. Most of the time, just 100 res, pretty tanky, and just get damage from the dots, additional damage, artifacts, and those kind of good things on her. Charlotte, however, I haven't seen Charlotte being used in ages outside of a few RTA players that really specialize on like building all around her. I feel like she's kind of weak in current meta. There's just so many more better options out there. She does have a value where you can use her as a speed booster because she is a 105 base. She does give a little bit of an attack bar gain while also decreasing the attack bar on the enemy. So she has some value, but not really that great. So I give her just a 65 on that. Beth is pretty interesting for dealing, well, she's kind of good in that last slot for the RTA comp with like the Layla, Heigang, Tomoe kind of style. Because she does have the cleanse block, she does have armor break, she does have a good bit of damage. You can still build her tank in those kind of things, so that's kind of nice. But in Siege and Arena, you don't tend to see her as much. So therefore, a little bit of lower value. If you have a very specific comp around her, she's good. She is good in TOA kind of things, though. So TOA Hell and that kind of stuff, I give her a little bit of up value for that. So that's where you place Beth. Rocky is trying to counter certain things, which she's just not really good at countering. So I give Rocky a 60. Sure, you could kind of make her work, and she can use in some siege offenses or siege defense, or like siege offense, arena offense, but it's not really that great. So in most cases, you just want to build her on like crit rate 4 for the shatter, but it's not really that great. Athena, however, Athena is still pretty good for RTA. Siege offense, you can see her. Siege defense, not really. Well, siege defense, there's actually siege defense with the Tarnisha, which is the Fire Jennifer, Athena, and then +1, which is not a bad defense right there. I would say for RTA, it's not a really main pick anymore, but it's still pretty decent pick. Normal arena, you're not really going to see it. So I'll give Athena an 85 because of that. Most of the time, it's still swift, crit rate, and attack, but you could go for different builds with like Vio or Despair, those kind of things. Moving on next, Chow. Well, Chow is still a best in slot for the Labyrinth boss in Leos. I would say Chow in RTA is feeling a little bit stronger right now because of the heavy fire meta that we have. It is also pretty good against Shiho, so I would say Chow is actually getting a little bit more credit from me. I would also say Siege offense, I can see some hits with Chow, so Chow is getting a little bit more value. I would go speed, crit damage, and HP. Keep in mind, his main scaling is still from attack, so you don't want to be slacking out on your attack. Sure, you get HP scaling from the passive, but his actual pure scaling on S1 and S2 comes from attack. So you want to have some attack on him still. You want to make him decently fast. But a good Chow, I would say 80 to 85. I would say 85 because of the uniqueness in the Labby boss that he can solo. That's always kind of nice. Leica, for me, is just kind of used in subjugation, and outside of that, I really never use a Leica all too much. It's just not really. You have some RTA moments where Leica is good, yes, but in most cases, there's too many multi-hits. Leica really dies to that. So I would say Leica 65. Most of the time, it's still built on Vampire and then like just high damage, and that's it. Leo. It's not really, well, it's really common for arena, or it's more common for arena defense. It is good for arena offense. And you can still see it in some siege hits, or actually multiple siege hits. And it's still really good for RTA. I would actually give Leo 100. And reason for that is he's still good in like a little bit of everything in the game. Sure, it's just PvP focused. PvE, it's not going to give you anything. No, let's actually, well, it's also that much of a unique best in slot. I'll give Leo 100. And main reason is it's really good in the specific things for siege offense, arena defense, if you have the right team for it. RTA, it's still a must build right there. So Leo's just super all around. So I'll place Leo at 100. Most common builds are Vio, Nem, but you could also go Vampire. You could also go like all kinds of stuff. You could go high damage. You could go low damage. There's just a lot of options that you want to go for him. But definitely aim low speed at him. You don't need that much speed. Moving on next, Shiho, which was actually one of the lowest last time around, which is worth a lot more right now. is mainly RTA. Would not really place it anywhere else than RTA, but it is a really, really strong RTA unit right there. So since he's not that great anywhere else but just RTA, I will give this unit a 85. Also, he's slightly drifting out of meta, but he's crazy good for RTA. RTA in most cases is just swift. You can go for crit rate on the 4, attack on the 4, HP on the 4. On the 6, you could go accuracy, you could go attack, you could go HPs. Just a lot of stats, additional damage artifacts. That's where his main damage comes from. But I would say he's pretty all-round for RTA. Outside of that, not really. The Meowang, still a good RTA unit. Is not as common in the meta anymore as he used to be. I would say siege offense, you could see it here and there, but not that common. Most of the time he's built Vio Nem, and you want to go for anything along the lines of 100 crit rate, crit damage on the 4, HP on the 6. And that's about it for this unit right there. But in a right scenario, RTA is good. Outside of that, not really. We have Xingzi, which is being added as a speed lead. Therefore, I would say maybe if you don't have any other lead, you could put in an arena defense. It makes him a little bit more all-round in that kind of shape and way. But in most cases, I would say he's not really the best in slot right there. He can be used in RTA, but he needs a specific team to be good in there. But he's a little bit more all-round than the Shio, but he's not as good as the Shio. So for that reason, they're on the same tier because he's a little bit more all-round. Most cases, you want to go for speed, crit rate, and attack or HP on him. And then just a lot of substats, keeping good enough accuracy. I would say in most cases, Will or Revenge is the offset. Moving on to a Chandra, still for siege defense. I have seen it a little bit of a comeback in RTA. It was gone in RTA for a little bit, but now it's making a bit of a comeback. So I'll give that a 90. It's more RTA related than anything, but he's making a bit of a comeback, especially with Oliver being gone right now, where I would say Chandra is picking up some pace again, where he's feeling pretty strong. Could be on Swift, which is kind of nice as a trap. Also for siege offense, you could put it on Swift. It is still on siege defense that is usable. Could also be Despair, could also be Violent. Most cases, crit damage on the 4, HP on the 6. Kumar. Kumar now has like 16 million buffs. It's just a siege unit, I would say, and it's not doing a crazy bit of like work in siege. I feel like it's mainly next to a Sylvia that it's kind of okay, but outside of that, I don't really feel Kumar getting that much traction. So I'll give Kumar 75. Most of the cases, you go speed HP, HP, or speed crit damage HP, and then you just go for like a Vio set or Vio Revenge or anything that kind of shape or way. Retash, however, I think Retash joins in with a 65 of can be used. There's one or not. Well, let's actually give him 70. There is still that arena offense with a NFL Retash, and then you go for a Zerath, which is very strong for siege offense, but with a Leo paired, it's really good for arena offense. It's just not super common because there's better options out there. But Retash is one of the few units that gives a defense buff and a defense break, which does give some value to some defense scalers. Issue is there's not a crazy amount of defense scalers out there in the game, so he gets a little bit less value from that. Moving on to Wusa. Wusa is still pretty good for siege, I would say. Especially earlier game siege, he has very high value because there's not as many strips. But I feel like that there's still a good bit of strips in every team right now, so Wusa gets a little bit less value. RTA, you could see it being used here and there, but it's also getting less value right there. So it's a little bit good everywhere, but it's also not doing a crazy amount of like work in any of those positions. Could be Swift, Speed, HP, HP. Could be Vio, also Speed, HP, HP. Most of the time, it is on Will. Chiwu. Chiwu is mainly for arena offense. It's still one of the better offense with like Chiwu, Gali, and Asher, which I think is very strong. For Siege, you can see it in some place. For RTA, you can see it in some places. So a little bit of everywhere in PvP, but also not doing anything really particularly super strong. So I think 85 is a fair fit for Chiwu right there. Most of the time, it's just speedy and you go for accuracy. He can actually do good damage if you go crit damage on the 4 because his S2 is a guaranteed crit, but his S3 is a speed scaling. So if you crit on that speed scaling, he can actually do a good bit of damage. So Chiwu, 85 for me. Pongbeak, not a big fan of Pongbeak. Sure, you can use him against those Camilla arena defenses that you see from time to time, but it's just kind of that, and even there, I kind of see him lacking damage from time to time. So I would give him a 1-up for just arena offense. He has some kind of value in there if you don't have anything else, but he's not really crazy in that kind of shape or way on anything. And it's just damage build for one. Theomars, I feel like Theomars in R5 has the best in slot for the crit rate lead, so that makes Theomars already pretty interesting. Siege defense is definitely still used early game, maybe siege offense. Also, siege defense is more early game than late game anyway, so I would give a Theomars just an 80. I would say if Theomars was a unit that was not that easily obtained, he would maybe be a little bit less overlooked because people are just so used to him. Theomars, by all means, is not that bad of a unit. It's also just not that crazy. It's kind of straightforward these days, but I'll give Theomars, no, I'm actually give him a 75 because I don't see him all too often. But he's still one of those units could be used here and there. Most of the time, just speed, crit damage, attack, and speed scaling damage and that kind of good stuff. The Saurion is still used for, I would say, mainly siege defense / offense. More offense than defense. RTA, it's also one of those units. It tries to Oblivion things, but most of the time there's multiple clans and then it's not that great for Oblivion, so I will give that an 80. For RTA, it's more tanky-ish build. For Siege, it's more tanky-ish still, but more on Destroy, I would say. So both of them violent, but for RTA, it's more Revenge or Will. For Siege, it's more Destroy or still Will. That's an option. But in both cases, I would recommend to go tanky on him. Akamamir is... I'm not a big fan of Akamamir. You can use it in Giants. You can use it in Arena offense, you can use it in Siege offense, but I feel like it's everywhere kind of not really doing its job that well. So I would say maybe just 70. Like if you have the right amount of debuffs, he can do a good bit of damage, but if this thing was a light or dark where he did not care about elements, he would have been a lot better. But since he's wind, there's not always a water team to hit, blah, blah, blah. It's not that crazy. Alicia, pretty decent unit for damage dealing, but it is good for PvP in Arena and Siege. Outside of that, not really that crazy, but I think kind of on Zyral's level. Like, sure, Zyral's is better in most scenarios, but I could see some scenarios where Alicia, if you go for that old school team where you go for, let's say, a Samath, a Kabila, Bastet, and Alicia goes from an S3 into an S2, then it still has some pretty high value right there. But that is more of a niche team. I think I would one downer because Zyral's is just way more all around. So 75 is fine for her. Most of the time, just very speedy, high damage and those kind of shenanigans. Tiana, I would say Tiana uniqueness and everything. I would claim Tiana back at 100, or do we claim Tiana at a 95? No, I would say it's the uniqueness best in slot because she's the only strip in game that has absolute zero RNG, which is just really nice for arena offense, really nice for siege offenses. Sure, you kind of want to have your particular units to pair with it, like by herself she doesn't do anything. RTA is not that crazy. I think I'll one down her though. Like, she's not as good as Leo, that she also can be placed in defense and those kind of things. So 95 for Tiana is fair. Most of the time you want to go crit damage on the 4. If you put it in arena offense, I would recommend to go 100 res and also will. And in most cases you just go swift and all fast in that kind of scenario. Brandia, I would definitely say Brandia is a best in slot for a bunch of Kairos dungeons, is best in slot for SF, is best in slot for R5, and it's really good for some of the labby bosses as well. So I would give her some value for that, for a Brandia to be 80, because being best in slot in a bunch of PvE stage already gives you quite some value. So in most cases, just full on damage. That's all you need to know. Poseidon. I'm not a big Poseidon fan at the moment. I feel like that even in a Kamamir or Pungbeak, well, they're kind of same level. Like, the only Poseidon team I would see people use is maybe Tiana, Poseidon, Galleon in Siege. Same thing for Arena, something along the lines similar like that. You could even go for like Chiwu, Asher, Galleon kind of style, and then with a Poseidon at the end. It is okay. It's nothing too crazy though. Most of the time, just go full damage on him, but you still want to have max accuracy and a decent amount of crit rate. Moving on next, Triton, which is actually reasonably buffed. I feel like Triton becomes best in slot for arena defense because of that buff. I have seen it a little bit more in Siege defense, but in Siege defense it's kind of straightforward. It's not as crazy good. But also in PvP, it's getting a little bit more of attention. So I would actually say Triton in current state of the game, maybe a 95. It's only PvP, but he's really good in a bunch of things. You could even make the argument of Triton for arena offense if you put your fastest set to it and you only have one fast set. I could make the argument that you could arena offense with Triton as well as your main pushbacker, as your main stripper right there. So Triton, I would say, is definitely pretty all-round in all PvP scenarios, but not in PvE. But he's really good. Most cases, you want to go for Swift, high accuracy on him. If you put him towards defense, you want to go for Will. But if you put him towards siege defense, you can also go for Despair. It's kind of annoying as well if he gets like a random stunning right there. Okeanos, more of an RTA unit, fell off a little bit in his RTA spot because you have Venton being that crazy good right now. And I would make the argument that Venton is better, even though Okeanos did get the S2 double hit right now. But he's just an RTA unit, so kind of similar level as a Shiho, just RTA. You want to go high additional damage artifacts, and you want to go for speed, HP, accuracy, or speed, HP, or anything along those lines. You don't want to really go for damage stats. Damage stats will come from the additional damage artifacts. Of course, a Vio and a Will. Bastet is not used as much, and I think it's not used as much mainly because Adriana is that crazy good. But still, some scenarios, and Bastet is pretty good next to like a Claire or next to an Odin for offense. There's definitely some options out there where she could be good. But it's more like siege offense, maybe some arena offense for like a bomber. Very straightforward, just swift. If you can add in the fights, fights are pretty nice as well. Sekhmet, also known as Sukhmet. I think it's just used for RTA right now, and she's having a rough time in RTA. Is what I would say. So I give her 80 value for just RTA as like a counter pick that might be pretty good. She has a 1-up base, which is the overticking moment where your Swift gets 1 extra speed. So she actually has 2 extra speed over an Asher or a Shio that are 115 on her 116. If I'm not mistaken, could be wrong on that, but I think I'm right on that. So she's a little bit okay on that, but yeah, she can miss her S3. She most of the time has low win rate, so I just give her like an 80 for that. She's still decent, but she's not crazy good. For arena defense, I've seen her being used sometimes. She is the counter to a Tiana offense. That is definitely a thing. But is she crazy good? I'm not sure. If people start using more Triton in offense, she actually is pretty good in defense as well. But that's kind of the case right there. Hathor, straight up 55. There's some TOA builds that you want to do with it, but that's just it. There's nothing really, anything to it. Samath, however, 33 leads. Since Oliver is nerfed, Samath becomes a little bit better. It is still pretty good for arena defense. There's also the siege offense with Samath, Ayunu, Perna, which is pretty common right now because of like the Maximilian Tritons and those kind of things. Or the same thing with like Neftis and like Ambers. So I feel like that in siege offense has a little bit of value. Arena offense has more value than Vanessa. Arena defense is still pretty decent, but I would say Vanessa in most cases is a little bit better. But also in PvP and RTA, because of the Oliver nerf, I see a good Samath on Despair or a good like tech math on full on damage, having some value right there. So Samath is pretty all-round where I play Samath on the 90 right now. Could be on Rage, could be on Nem Rage, could be on Rage Will, could be on Despair, could be on all kinds of builds right there. Could be on Triple Fight if it's just for arena offense. Lots of options right there. Daphnis can be for siege offense, could be for RTA, but it's too much of a coin flip for me to actually land the strip, land the death break, and then go for the full nuke. So Daphnis for me is just a 7. Typical nuker build that you want to do on that. Ganymede. I feel like Ganymede, every time I think about Ganymede, like the Ventilate, the Seal Magic, the Skill 3, everything just feels so strong about it, but he's just overshined by units that simply do more. I would say it's still a best in slot for a lot of TOA stages, but outside of that, even this, I would give the argument that a Homunculus Dark just does more value, and therefore it's not as crazy. So I could make the argument for an arena offense team with a bomber where you go for Ezio into boosting up your Ganymede resetting, and therefore your other units can move. Arguably best bomber team out there to make a bomber team fast, and then you can go Sierra Bomber, Ezio, and Ganymede, but bombering is not that common. Siege offense, you used to have the siege offense with a Ganymede Wusa and then a Rika or something, but it's not as common because you have more units with just strips in there. And also for RTA, it's just not as common. So he's a little bit good everywhere, but he's nowhere really good. So I would give Ganymede a 75 on that. No, actually, I still give Ganymede an 80. I think there's just better options, but if you don't have those better options, he's still a really good all-round unit. So 80 for Ganymede is fair because of his all-round usability right there. Panda's up next. Molong is a little bit good everywhere, but nowhere really good. Like, I've seen some people go for Swift Molongs in RTA. That's not too bad if you have the right comfort. I've seen some people still used in Siege, but in high-rank Siege, you barely see that. And that's about it. So I give Molong a 75. He's kind of drifting out of meta where you have way more options to one-shot things than just the Molong. And he's not fully one-shotting things, it's just two-shotting things. So 75 for Molong feels fine. Could be Vampire, could be Vio, could be Swift, could be a whole bunch of things. But 75 for that is fine. Feng Yang, however, Feng Yang is really good in arena offense. It's still the most chill auto offense in game. It's very good in Siege offense still. RTA doesn't have that much value in RTA, but it can be used at the right position. Definitely a unit you want to keep more dupes of, same as like Tiana and Leo. But yeah, that's... Do we give him 95? Where did I place him last time around? Was he in 95 for last time around? Yeah, I feel like he's still 95. I think that's a fair statement right there. So Feng Yang, most of the time you want to go for Vampire Destroy if he's towards like Siege or Arena offense. And you want to go for, if you always pair him with a Leo, don't give him any speed. Just high defense, high HP, additional damage by defense, HP. If you always pair him up with an Alaya, defense increasing effect is super strong as well. But 95 for that one right there. I also noticed that I did not add in the Xiongfei. Xiongfei has a lot of early game value. It's really good in your first R5 team. And it's really good in your first Necro team. But then again, Necro is super easy to get because you get a lot of 4-stars just straight up easily that way right now. But I feel like that Xiongfei still has a little bit of value here and there where I would say he's not that bad of a unit. Also, if you want to put him towards like a Bruiser style and Siege offense early game, or yeah, you can actually make him use. It's just whatever Vio stats you can give to him is kind of fine. But I'll place him at like a 70. I think it's... No, let's actually go 65. It's not a crazy good unit, but he can be used here and there. Moving on next to some ponies. Amelia. You have like the Amelia combination with Bolveric, but also Siege offense you don't see too common anymore. That's just the main thing. You want to go 100 rest on it and blah blah, that kind of stuff with Via Will, but it's not as common as an offense anymore. Helena is a little bit more common for Siege. In the Siege offense where you go with a Leo and a Jean, it's super strong. RTA as a late pick can be pretty strong as well. So I would give her a 75 as well. Or do I give that a little bit higher? No, I actually feel like that is worth a little bit higher. And actually want to one-up the Vanessa as well. Because I feel like that Vanessa has definitely more value than any of those units. So just a little bit of one-up over there. But yeah, it's okay-ish as a late pick in RTA. Most of the time, just HP, crit rate or crit damage, and then HP on the 6 as well. Vile Will. Diana is kind of a similar thing. You can use in some Siege hits. You can still use in RTA. It's more used in RTA than the Helena, that's for sure. There's a lot of AoEs out there right now, so Diana is getting a little bit more traction in RTA. Most of the time you want to go HP, crit damage, HP. Still aim for like 60-ish extra speed. And you want to go decent on your HP, but also on your attack. Because in the end, your S2 is full attack scaling. It's just your HP that transfers into attack on your human form. But you never actually scale from your HP outside of just your Pony S1. Everything else is just full on attack scaling. Pony S1 is the only one that's half attack, half HP scaling. Moving on next, Josephine. Very strong unit right now, but just RTA. I haven't really seen it anywhere in Arena or Siege. So just an RTA unit, but it's a really, really strong RTA unit right now. So I'm going to place it at 90. Most common build is Fire Will with speed, HP, HP. You don't have to go for crit damage. You could go for crit damage on the 4. You could go for crit damage in the subs. Or you could also go for high accuracy. There's a lot of options that you could go for Josephine. But Josephine, because we're still in a pretty hefty stun meta, it's a really, really good RTA unit. And if you have a nasty shield on that, very, very strong unit right there. So 90 is the value for that. Ophelia, I've seen some Ophelia defenses, but I feel like they're all kind of ass. Like, low-key, they're all kind of ass. And they're also mostly LD related, like a Geldir and that kind of stuff. So Ophelia... I'll give Ophelia a 65. I'm really not a big fan of Ophelia. Lewis, however, is more of a Siege offense hit, which I actually felt like that I should have skilled her up earlier. It is mainly paired with a Heigang and then a Tassarian or a Brika, but she's pretty substantially good at that. So I'll give 75 just for that Siege offense hit, but that's one of those Siege offense hits that nearly never failed me. So I kind of like that value out of it. Abellio. I think Abellio is actually really strong at the moment. Abellio can still be used for arena defense. It's not super common. Siege offense or defense, not that common, but RTA, especially because of Venton, he is a good counter to the Venton because he will cleanse off that silence, heal everything, and then Venton has a more difficult time of doing his shits. So I would say for RTA into Cleaves, super strong. RTA into Venton, pretty strong. But also arena defense, still pretty decent. So I will give Abellio a 90 for that reason. In most cases, built on defense, crit damage defense, or speed, crit rate defense, or anything that you like to do. There is a nice way to put a good bit of damage to his S2, and he will take his turns from just his passive anyway. So, but if he is a little bit faster, can help you out there as well. So 90 for Abellio. Fire Will's the most common build. Balinus can be used some siege offenses with like the fire dot teams kind of style out there, or a siege offense, not arena offense. Arena offense, not really. RTA, it's kind of a position where you could use a Rika when you can also use a Balinus. So they're kind of like similar-ish kind of style. Can also be used in like TOA kind of thing. So Balinus, I'll give that an 80 right there. Most of the time, just Swift on a damage build. You don't really want to go for Vio or like Despair or anything like that. Tyrannies is common for siege defense, and I would say siege defense only. I don't really see it anywhere else than siege defense. Is he really good at siege defense? I would give him an okay to not bad. So last year, I think I probably rated him a little bit higher because he was doing better in siege defense. This time around, I feel like he's just doing... I can't actually find the unit right now. Oh, it's sitting at 80 over there. This year, I feel like he's a little bit lower in value because people, I guess, kind of figured out his defense. Sure, you cannot go for single-target nukes, but I've seen plenty of single-target nukes where you still go through the Tyrannies and it's still kind of fine. But, well, maybe I'll give him the one up because it's a unique unit for siege defense that at least tries to counter the Sonya and the Adrianas and those kind of things. Moving on next to Bolvric, which is also not super commonly used anymore. RTA, some usage here and there. I would say because of the RTA uses, I give him a 1-up. Siege offense, yep. Arena offense, way too slow, so not really. I would say for TOA hell clearing, though, he's super unique and makes it your life a lot easier. So I'll give him a 2-up on that. So it is just RTA, or a little bit of RTA, a little bit of siege, but mainly the TOA health value that he provides, because he makes a lot of like teams way easier. Plus that gives you extra resources, and he's kind of a unique best-in slot for that no one can replace what he does by doing like, what, 70, 80k damage on the enemy thing while healing your whole team for like 90k damage. So yeah, that's kind of nice right there. Most common build is just, I still kind of like the Shield Revenge Will, but Vile Will is kind of fine as well. That you could go all kinds of ways with it. Most of the time, just tanky and high resistance. That's what you're aiming for. Odin. I've seen some Odin offenses still. I've seen a decent bit of Odin defenses in Siege. I also have seen arena defense with Siege, with Odin. The arena defense is less common with a Vanessa, Adriana, and then an Amduet. It's definitely not a bad defense out there, so I will give Odin some value for that. For RTA, it's not really a value right there. Siege offense could be used here and there as well. Yeah, I think I one up the Odin. I think Odin is kind of all-round used outside of not just not RTA and not PvE, but if you're looking towards Siege and Arena, Odin is pretty common in there everywhere. So I'll give Odin a 90 for that. Most of the time is built on Swift or Vio. You always want to build it on Will to give himself the extra stack. Crit damage on the 4 in most cases, because he does get the he does have a 33 lead on crit rate himself. But it's also the case where he just gets the 15% for elemental advantage if he is at his max stacks. If you pull him next to an Adriana, make sure that he's fast enough with speed increasing effect. Because if your Adriana moves and then your Odin moves way later, it's going to be kind of useless. So Odin, for that reason, I think has some decent value in current state of the game. Or do we one down him? No, I think since he also has an arena defense on a full team that is arena defense without any LD5s, that is pretty unique right there. There's not too many full non-LD5 teams that work pretty strong. And the team that I just mentioned with the Vanessa, Adriana, Odin, and Amduet, if it's good rune, I've seen it get legend a few times last year. Not that often, but a few times. Christina. Christina got some more attention in RTA by Valeska players, and that is mainly putting on a Nemesis, hitting hard. Valeska can pick up from that kind of good stuff. It's somewhat used in arena offense. In RTA, it's more of a double nem wheel style. In arena offense, it's more of just a full-on nuker style. Do I really like it myself, though? Kind of in the mids if I'm a big fan. I think if you have a Valeska, she definitely goes up a few ranks. Without Valeska, I think she's just a 75 that you don't really want to be looking at her too often. Maybe an 80 for the arena offense value as well. Moving on to some demons. Bale. It's one of those units, he tries to dot by dealing how much damage he dealt, and he has a guaranteed non-glance or guaranteed elemental advantage, I think even. But he's just not doing enough. I give him a 65 on that. Belial, or Belial as it should be, still good common thing with the Camilla. It is a good one to keep some dupes off. I see some people use it in RTA, but I feel like he kind of fell off because there's a lot of teams that kind of do kill the Camilla, and therefore he falls off a little bit more as well. There are a few teams with the new unit Cynthia where it does also make sense to have the Belial on there, but it is not really that crazy common these days. Well, actually, no, I give him a 90, and that's mainly because if there's like a heavy pushback team, combination with Cynthia and Belial is just super strong still. So I'll give that a 9. Mephisto is usable in Giants, but it's not really crazy good in there because you want to use the Homunculus, and the Homunculus loses his passive because of the Mephisto. Not really that great. Arena offense, I've seen some people still use it against Samaths. It's okay-ish. RTA, same okay-ish. I'll give it a 70 because I haven't used mine in... Well, he's a little bit of okay everywhere, so I'll give him 75 on that, but he's not really crazy good or anything anywhere. Masha, just an RTA unit, but also kind of losing her spot where she becomes really good in RTA. So I'll give it the same value as a Merewing. Most of the time you just want to build it on via will, no longer really on Nemesis, because there's too many annoying things that would mess up if you don't start off with the will. And then speed, crit damage, attack is the most common for it, but just an RTA unit right there. Barbara, I would say Barbara is also just RTA unit. We have seen some Barbaras on defense next to Fire, Jennifer, Barbara +1. Those were never really that scary. There's a few options where you can hard clear those pretty easily. It has a little bit of an option right there, but yeah, just a 75 is fine for me. Savannah, however, I feel like Savannah is actually kind of underrated at the moment, where I would like to put Savannah maybe even to 95. And I would say for siege defense, you could make a siege defense where you put it on Swift next to a Tarnisha and then it could trap someone. That's an option. You can put it next to Morse for defense. Pretty strong. It is still really good if you want to go for super early game casual Giants team. Savannah will do good in your Giants there as well. It is a pretty good unit for TOA Hell, which is still pretty good right there. And arena offense, you could use it. It's not crazy good, but it's a jack of all trades. It's not crazy good anywhere, but it kind of works everywhere. And because of that, I kind of want to give her some extra value. Well, maybe I don't use her too much myself. I'll one down her because she's not crazy good everywhere, but you could use it towards RTA, you could use it towards Siege, you could use her in Arena, you could use her in PvE. Okay, that's too many good uses. I'll give her 95. Especially early game, she has crazy early game value. Late game, she falls off if you have like all of the tools best in slots. But if you need one unit to throw Devilmons on that does like 16,000 different things, Savannah, your girl. Most common build is speed, crit rate, attack with high accuracy, I would say. That just makes it easy to get enough speed and enough attack in. If you have good enough stats, you can also go for crit damage for. Could be Swift, could be Fire, could be Despair, could be all kinds of things. But Savannah, yeah, I think she's actually kind of strong. Hey Gang. Hey Gang is, well, 95 right there. It is just everything that's not PvP. That's just the main thing. Arena offense, really good against some teams. Well, there's a lot of too many Tritons out there, so therefore it's not that crazy, I would say. RTA, crazy good unit. Siege, there's a lot of teams right there still with like a Claire or any kind of other strip that Hagang will be super strong against with like most common team that I use is Hagang, Lewis, plus like a Fire Nuker or like a Fire Bruiser, Rika, or the Sarion, crazy good right there. Arena offense with the Trix team, like Trix, Lamila, Amber team, super strong. Well, RTA, don't even have to mention it, so Hagang, super strong right there. Most common build, still Despair, faster than your whole team, and you want to put him on Will, that's very important. Jogun actually had a shine earlier this year by getting the attack bar gain of 15. It fell off a little bit by making it to 10, but I think it's still pretty strong. Like, if you want to bomb in Arena, Jogun is probably your way to go. Siege defense, there's some defense out there where he's kind of okay. Some RTA comps, he's still kind of there. The only thing is you don't want to build him crazy fast, where people were putting like 230 sets on him before. Now he's just like a 210. If you have the enemy fully on the wheel, he's still a really strong unit right there. So I give Jogun a 94. Just his PvP value, but he's pretty decent in all kind of PvP scenarios right there. Most common build is Swift, 100 res, and then still maxing out your accuracy. Changpeng is still pretty common for Siege offense. I would say Siege offense the most. Arena offense, haven't seen it that much. I can see him being used in like TOA and those kind of things. It is a little bit similar to Savannah, but I feel like Savannah is a little bit more all-around also for PvE kind of things. And both of them are used as much in RTA these days. So I'll give it definitely a little bit of a down value for that. Plus, you're not going to put Changpeng on defense where Savannah is on defense. So 85 on Changpeng. Could be Despair, could be Fire, could be Swift. Most of the time it's additional damage artifacts, but if you put it towards a Siege offense, then I would recommend to go crit rate and crit damage and still max accuracy on that. More, if we're talking about super all-around units, it's still usable in RTA, especially since all of our nerf. Siege offense and Siege defense, I can see it being used. Siege defense or Arena defense, I can see it being used. Arena offense, maybe not as much, but more is all PvP grounds, still very strong. Plus, it's one of those units in RTA. It could be a trap more, where you go full damage on rage. It could be a Despair more, where it could be super annoying. It could be a Swift more. It could be a Vio more. It's one of the few units that outside of the 3 main sets, and the main sets are Swift, Will, or Swift, Despair, Vio, he can also be on a rage build. It's one of the very few units that has 4 different complete builds, which are strong. So therefore, also dupe on more is definitely not that bad. But he's that all-round in all PvP scenarios that I do give him a 95 for that reason. Most of the time, it's speed, attack, or speed. Well, that's also the thing. Like, slot force could be crit rates, could be crit damage, could be HP, could be attack. 6 could be HP, could be HP, could be attack, could be accuracy. It really just depends what kind of build you want to go on him. Same with the artifacts. So, more is super versatile, and I give him 95 for that. Douglas. I give Douglas is mainly a RTA unit. Some Siege offense, if the offense allows you to Douglas it, it's a pretty easy free win. I'll give that kind of the value of like the Marsha and the Mayo Wing. No, actually one up that, because I feel like that these, you need more specific drafts around. Douglas is like, if your enemy drafts in a certain way, Douglas is always good to have, either as a must ban or anything like that. Plus it has some siege value. I could see you making an auto team with your arena thing on Douglas as well. Plus Douglas actually in the subjugation is pretty nice, because the boss will keep hitting the Douglas will counter back, and you just get like easier clears in on that one. So most of the time, or pretty much always, Vampire, you want to go high attack, but don't slack out on the HP and defense. A little bit of HP and defense to make him survive is pretty nice against those additional damage artifacts these days. Kashmir was one of the lowest units last time around. I would say definitely because of the Temple of Chaos. With the Katarina team, he had a good position right there. I can see it being used in some Siege offense. I can see it being used in RTA. It was actually used against the Light Huarang pretty effectively in RTA. But if he's really that crazy good, or he's just like a value, ooh, I didn't play against him, therefore I'm scared about it, more like that. But I'll give him like the deafness value right there on the 70. This thing, he got extra damage for getting destroyed HP and that kind of stuff. I tried him out a little bit. Not a big fan. Like, this thing is still relatively pretty ass. Carnal, however, is being played a lot in RTA with Nyx. Definitely the Nyx players do like to pick themselves up a Carnal, because then Carnal has 2-turn provoke S1. Slows are heftier on turns. But without the Nyx, is Carnal really good? Well, it's still for the turn 2 RTA plays. It's not that bad a unit, but it's also not crazy good a unit. In RTA, it's just used in RTA. Siege, haven't seen it anywhere. Arena defense, I've seen it in some places, but not that much. So I'm just gonna down you to 80. Most cases, it's just like speed crit damage HP or speed crit HP that you want to aim for. Cigar, I would say kind of same thing, just an RTA unit, but also kind of lost its shine in RTA. So I'll give that a 75. If you still want to rock in a Cigar, I would recommend to go for a Swift Cigar, because it's definitely not worth your 190 Vio set or whatever fast Vio set you normally have. You want to go a little bit less rune investment in him, but still being able to draft him, go Swift on him. That's my main recommendation. Speed, HP, accuracy, or speed, HP, or whatever you want to go with that. Shizuka is mainly drafted for RTA for those guys that also go for ignored defenses. Pretty strong in that. Siege, you don't see it too often. Arena, you don't see it too often, but I will give her a lot of value for TOA as well. And that is the TOA comp where you go for spreading your invisibility and then making your whole team like super easy. So she's pretty, like, where Bolfric was super unique in TOA, she's super unique in TOA as well, plus having some RTA value. So I'll give Shizuka an 85. Most of the time, 100 rest, tanky, Swift, or not Swift, Fio, tanky, will, that kind of shenanigans. Tomoe. Tomoe is actually really, really good in Siege offense. She is, in my opinion, sitting in the strongest Siege offense without any of these, which is the Tomoe, Tricks, and Amber. It clears so many things so effectively that I just give her so much value for that. In RTA, she can be okayish, but I'm not the biggest of RTA fan for her. Same for Arena. So I'll give that a 90 on that sense. You could use it for TOA, but also for TOA, not the craziest fan. So just the Siege offense unit right there. Siege defense, maybe not that crazy as well. Most of the time, she's just Despair and Will, or you could go Fire as well, but I like Despair a little bit more on there. Gyo. Just an RTA unit, but you don't even see it that much in RTA anymore. I would give Gyo maybe a 75. Yeah, I don't feel like it's on the same value as like these three, which are just RTA units kind of style. 75 on the Gyo. It's mainly just a Despair unit. I've seen some more damage Gyos, but even that wasn't a big fan. Nana, still some RTA value. Siege defense, you don't see it too much. Arena defense, you still don't see it too much. I've seen some Siege offenses or Arena offense user, but it's more of like an RTA unit in the first place. I'll give Nana a 75. It's a little bit all round. Could be Vio, could be Despair, could be crit damage, could be just additional damage, could be just full on tank, could be a Sonya tank. There's a fair bit of options out there, but Nana's not really that common. Coco recently buffed, or well, maybe nerfed, to get Speed Awakening rather than Res Awakening. Can see it work for some Siege offense, but haven't really seen people play around with it. Same for RTA. It's okay-ish here and there. It's a good counter to a light Hwoarang, but outside of that, not that crazy. So I'll just give Coco 75, because these units actually do good in RTA. She kind of still struggles in whatever she's doing. Momo actually became a best in slot in Temple of Chaos every rotation, so that's definitely having a good bit of value for there. Siege defense, you could still use it right there. RTA, not really. So this is mainly value for Temple of Chaos. Plus, you could maybe use it some niche here and there otherwise, but having a good unit for Temple of Chaos is definitely pretty nice. So, and Momo is absolutely a best in slot in every rotation of Temple of Chaos outside of Fire, of course. So I'll give her an 80 for that, and some Siege defense shenanigans I've seen her being used there as well. Miles, just RTA. I've seen Miles on Siege defense, but I've never been a big fan of Miles on Siege defense. Mainly because Siege defense, Miles is just Feng Yang Leo food, like 9 out of 10. So I'll give that an 80. Just on the other par with RTA units right there, 80 for the Miles. Most of the time, just Fio, shield, very fast. Oliver, that's going to be an interesting one. So Oliver is just an RTA unit. A normal arena, you don't use it. Anything else PvE, you don't really use it. But he's really downgraded from his RTA value. So I would give him the same value as like a Shiho right there. So Oliver goes on 85 for me. Sierra's a little bit more all-round with also being able to use it in like some Siege offense or Arena offense. Oliver doesn't have all of that stuff. Oliver still is pretty good for his 33, but he definitely fell off a little bit because of his nerf to not get like 100 bar and steal everything, because his cycling gets a lot worse from that. So Oliver at 85, I think, is fair. Most of the time, still Vio, crit rate, HP. If you want to go for more a full-on offensive team, if you want to use it more on a bruiser team, it's like speed, HP. Never been a big fan of the resistance one, but that's still an option. John, I would argue best bomber in game by highest damage output and most cycling, and also having his reset, but he's just not used that much. But if you want to go for a bomber, I would say John. So he's a best in slot bomber for that, and that makes him kind of unique. So 75 to John for that. Most of the time, just Will and Fatal kind of style. Alaya. Ooh, I also do notice I miss Riley, and we're going to place in Riley first. Added in the Riley. Let's go for Riley first. Riley is actually really, really strong at the moment. I think I'll give Riley straight up a 95. It is usable in arena offense if you don't have an Alaya. Alaya is better in the Leo Feng Yang Alaya team, but if you go for a Leo Riley plus like a Dominic or something, you could still make an auto team out of that. It is getting a little bit more attention in RTA, and Siege offense, it's really good in Siege offense still. It's actually where you see the Tarnishas. It's getting pretty common next to like a Xingzi, Riley, or you go for like a Riley, Tessarion plus a Jean. There's a lot of good options in Siege offense out there. I think I won down it because it's not super common in anything else. You do see it a little bit in some of those PvP things like the Labyrinth final boss, those kind of things. You do tend to see a little bit, but I'll give Riley a 90 right there. But yeah, it's most of the time just Vio, Will, 100 res, speedy, tanky. That's all you need to know. You can use it in RTA. And in RTA, it's kind of okayish against Venton because she can still use the S4 against Venton, which is pretty strong. But then again, Venton would also push her back. So I'll give Riley a 90 for that. Alaya, however, pretty much same thing. Is a best in slot in Siege offense, is a best in slot in Arena offense for the slow team, and can actually be used in RTA because of the counter to the Venton. So I would say Alaya, I'll give Alaya a little bit of a value up on the 95. Plus, also, you want many dupes of those, and it's the best pair with the Feng Yang, Leo, Alaya still. That team hasn't changed anything. Nora. I would say Nora is really good value for TOA. It's still one of my favorites in TOA. You can use it for Siege offense, Arena offense. RTA, you're definitely not going to be using it. So, but is she as good as, like... I feel like that a Trix has still a little bit of higher value for both Arena offense and Siege offense. So she's decent at it, but not crazy good. And also Siege defense, you don't see her too often. So I'll give her an 85 for being good at a lot of places, but not crazy good. No, actually, I'll give her a 90. Because she also has a lot of early game value. If you early game want to step into PvP and you want a unit that does a little bit of everything, she's actually really good. So I'll give Nora a 90 right there. Liam recently has been buffed to be a best in slot in Dragons for sure. Can be used in R5. So for PvE value, he's definitely a best in slot. You can use him in some Siege offenses here and there as well, but it's not really that crazy. But mainly for PvE value, Liam became a lot better because he will always use his S3 if there's less than 4 units on the field. So 3 units on the field, he will always use S3, which definitely makes him pretty nice for a lot of PvE teams. So I'll give him an 85 on that. Like, he's pretty unique in that, where other units simply cannot do. But you still need other units for him to set up. It's not like, oh, I solo kill the whole boss with a Liam kind of style. But 85 for that is pretty fine. Most of the time, you just want to go for a full-on damage at him. Oh, and I also missed the damage or the set on Nora. Nora most of the time is just Vio, Will, or Vio Revenge. I like Vio Revenge a little bit more. Decent in the accuracy, high HP, high speed, that kind of shenanigans. Carlos is trying to counter Sonya here and there. I can see some people use it in RTA if you do go for like Christina, Carlos, Sonya's yourselves. Valescas is mainly paired with that. Then it's okay. Outside of that, I don't really see too much use of a Carlos at the moment. So I'll give Carlos a 70. Mostly built on Vampire, full damage kind of style. Dominic, I've seen some people still use Siege offense Dominics. I've seen a very rarely RTA style Dominic still. Not that bad of a unit, but it's also not crazy good. So I'll give Dom a 75. Mostly speed, attack. Big issue for Dom is the moment he drops under the 50% HP, he loses a lot of his damage output because he starts healing himself. So and his heal to himself is not really that substantial. So it's kind of the issue right there where I say Dom kind of did fall off. Minato. Minato is one of those units that you do tend to see in RTA and RTA only. And I feel like he's not on the level of like the Meowing Marsha kind of style of like pure RTA units. It's good like here and there, but Minato is just 75 for me. Most of the time it's Vampire. You can, if you're full turn 2 player, put your Minato to a Death Tank and Death Tank Sonias. It's kind of awkward, but if it works out, it's really nice. But yeah, Vampire Will is the most common build. You could go 100 res on him as well. Ren, I gave a lot of credit for last time around. Pretty sure he had 90 because he was one of the best in slots in Arena defense. I feel like he kind of fell off from the position in Arena defense. He's still decent in Arena defense though. He's still decent in Siege defense. But there's better options out there right now. Or not better options, there's more options out there right now. RTA is also, could be your speed contester here and there. But since the amount of Shihos in the game, he's a little bit less to Shihos, of course. but I'll give him an 85. He's still pretty strong. Most of the time, you just want to build him swift, decent accuracy. You could put some damage to him. If you put him on defense, however, you could also put him on Vio, and then also he can rock some good damage with his armor breaks provided by himself. Then we have this thing, I think it was called Zen or something. I haven't seen this thing in ages, and I think this thing is also really darn bad, so I'll give just a 65 to that. Then Amber. Amber goes straight to 95. Do we put Amber at 100? I think we put Amber at 100. Yeah, we put Amber at 100 because Amber is in the team which is the best arena offense, which is once again the Layla Trix Amber. Layla is in the best siege offense, which is the Trix Amber and Tomoe. So multiple Ambers is totally fine. You can also go for the siege offense of Amber with a Heigang and a Lewis or something like that. Plus it is usable in RTA. Plus Amber is crazy good in TOA hell. So Amber is absolutely a menace, super strong. I give 100 to Amber. Most of the time you just want to go super tanky, high additional damage artifacts. If you use it for RTA, you could go 100 rest. That is an option. But for the other things, she's even used in arena defense these days with like Maximilians and Neftises. Not really crazy good defense, but it is an option out there. You need LD5s, but it is an option out there. So yeah, there's a lot of options for Amber right there. I've seen Amber in arena defense, or siege defense and arena defense actually. So Amber gets straight 100 for me. I would almost make the argument that I feel that Amber is better than Leo, but they're kind of similar-ish level. Moving on next, Claire. I would say Claire can see some nukes in siege, but that's about it. Like Bastet's Claire +1 kind of nuke style. It's okay-ish. It's not crazy good, but it's okay-ish. I'll give that a 75. Maybe an 80. No, I'll give it a 75. It's just siege right there. Moving on next, Sonya. I definitely do think Sonya is arena offense still crazy good. Or, well, I would say arena offense very good, but not crazy good. Siege offense decently good, but Rigna's kind of on similar level right now. RTA fell off a little bit as well. So she was at a 101 before. Now she's just 100. I think that is fair. Like, she's definitely not stronger than the others, but I would say often in siege particular, she's outshined by something else. I think I even went down her, in all honesty. Is that fair? I feel like I make it in between it here because I feel like she's better than the units in 95, but she's not on the 100 tier. I definitely do feel like that she deserves this. She is above the 95, but she's not 100 anymore because in RTA, she's getting a little bit more struggles of like death traps and those kind of things. In Siege, same thing, where a Regna does do a little bit better. And Arena, the Amber Tomoe Tricks team is just that good that you don't have to go towards a Sonya team. But Sonya is still usable in some PvE things as well. So I'll give it a 97.5 for Sonya right there. Moving on next, Molly. I'm very happy that this is no longer really a thing. Molly, 65. You could use it as a bruiser, shenanigans, whatever, but it's not really commonly used. Well, I'll give it a 70. Hollyberry Cookie, this one. Fire, kind of same thing. It's not really commonly used. Also, I missed Sonya build. Sonya has just speed, crit rate, attack in most cases. You could go crit damage if you have high enough attack and high enough speed, though. But yeah, I think that's these two. I've seen this being used sometimes in RTA, but wasn't really a big fan, to be honest. This one, Jade. Jade is actually, I would say Jade is a little bit better. It's also used in the Temple of Chaos, or at least can be used in Temple of Chaos for like resets and those kind of things. I can see it being more used in Siege offense, so doesn't provide the immunity which Lewis does do, but it does go for cooldowns, it goes for shields, it goes for defense up, so it has some value. It's just not that many defense scaling units in game right now to give her a lot of value, but I can see her being used, just tanky builds on all three of them. Adriana. Adriana goes straight to the top. Do we go Adriana on 100? Yeah, we go Adriana on 100. It's very good for Siege offense. It's very good for the RTA players that actually do want to play that kind of style as well. Siege offense, arena offense, absolutely goated. Nothing to say about it. And it's also so many styles of arena offense. You could go for a Tiana into an Adriana to have your immunity. You could go for an Adriana with a Lucifer Leo style. You could go for Adriana with, of course, your Sonya Rigna style. You could go for your Adriana into a Lagmaron. Like, Adriana is just pairing up with so many things and it's so incredibly strong. Adriana is straight up 100. Most of the time, it's Swift build. You can also pair it up in defense. Defense Adriana is for the option that I mentioned before, the Vanessa Odin Adriana with an Amduet for arena defense. You have seen the Odin Adriana plus a third unit, such as the Fire Gojo or whatever kind of nuker. You also seen it with like the Zenitsu Wind. Like, there's a lot of options where Adriana becomes super, super strong. Straight up 100. Absolutely worth 100 right there for Adriana. And you want to keep multiple of those. Absolutely. Most of the time, it's Swift. You could go for Vio as well, but Swift is definitely better. Lucia was good against the Oliver meta. I would say against Venton, it still has a little bit of value here and there. Mainly RTA, but RTA only. I would still give it an 80 though. Triple Revenge is definitely what I highly recommend on her. Don't aim for the resistance. It's fucking useless. Just go for super high HP on it, so her heals on the S1 are really nice. And then left side artifacts, if you go damage by HP, she actually packs a punch for just revenging. It's kind of nice. Angela, same thing. Straight up 80, really good RTA unit. Outside of RTA, not really used that much. I've seen some... No, actually, I give it a 1-up. Or do I give it even a 2-up? No, I give it a 1-up because it's really good in the pair with Leo, Angela, and then a Nobara. Because Nobara brings units to 1 HP. They hit on her shield, kill themselves. So if you go Leo, Angela, double Nobara, freaking toxic, because this thing will actually help kill these units so much faster. It is a better offense, legitimately, than Leo, Feng Yang, and Alaya, because it's way faster. And it's as safe for autoing. It's a little bit less safe, but it's really darn strong on that. But you need 2 Nobaras for that. That's the only issue. But Angela for that, to be honest, I even give 2-ups. Like, you could use this in siege siege defense. No, siege defense not, but siege offense. You could even use that as well. So Angela, I'll give her quite some credit for that. Moving on to Zibala. I think Zibala is only used by people that have a Wunsa. Outside of that, I haven't really seen it too much. I do have a light Gojo right now, and I feel like I might actually rune up a Vio Zibala. That might actually not be that bad on my Gojo style, but I'll think about it. Maybe as like a 5th pick if I guarantee to outspeed or something like that. Yeah, well, I think I'll rune that up. But outside of that, I don't think that she is used that much. Or he, no, wait, those were he's. They said it at some point. But yeah, it's not used that much. So Zibala, I'll give it a... Well, it does have a little bit of flexibility in there, here and there. I'll give that an 80. Most of the time is swift, just fast, and that kind of stuff. Zima, however, kind of fell off. People tried it a little bit, but it just doesn't really work out that well. I'll give it a 75. Most of the time, just fast and accuracy focused. Smicer is also one of those units, even used less. Not a big fan of it whatsoever in the current meta. That one definitely did get hurt by healing less on the S1. That's definitely very noticeable. So moving into the Assassin's Creed units, Britta is just a siege defense unit. I would say if you want to hit the thresholds, which I don't remember all by heart right now. But yeah, just a siege defense unit, and outside of siege defense, even in siege defense, it's not super strong right now. It's just strong next to Sylvia's, but pretty much everything is strong next to Sylvia, right? So I'll give you 75 on that. Federica. Federica is still pretty strong, but it kind of fell off meta for RTA. I can see some siege hits with it still, but it's also not super common for siege hit, but I'll give that an 80 for that reason. Also, RTA, not super common. In RTA, it's definitely double Nem Will or Nem Will Blade. That is an option. For what's it called? For siege, it's mostly just full nuking. I would still keep Will on it because Will actually does increase her damage on the S2 by 5%. Then we have this thing, which I've seen some people kind of use it here and there, but I'm still not a big fan of this. It's more just siege hits with her, but I'll give that a 70 as a nuker build. Ezio was used a little bit on siege defense for a good bit of time. Also in RTA for a bit of time. I could still make the argument that I made earlier on the Ganymede with Ezio, Ganymede, and then going for a bomber like John plus a Sierra is strongest bomber team which has the highest speed potential. But is it really good per se? Not really, but he has some flexibilities where he can be decent for siege defense, arena offenses, maybe some RTA still here and there, so I'll give him an 80 for that. Most of the time, it's just both Swift or Despair. This thing is seated in the strongest PC team, but only good for PC. I haven't really seen him used anything outside of PvE just yet. So just PC, and then you need a very specific team as well. So I'll give that dude a 74, being a unique best in slot for one dungeon team, while being slightly usable in other teams as well, but not really that great. Ashur is definitely still an RTA unit. You can use it in siege defense as well. Outside of that, I haven't really seen him too much. And he's also not crazy good in RTA at the moment, but he's pretty substantial decent in RTA. So he's more on the value of like Oliver and She-Hulk because of like his RTA value in there. Most of the time it's speed, crit damage, HP, but he could also be speed, HP, or speed, crit rate, HP, anything along those lines. If you go more HP focused, it's more additional damage artifact focused. If you go more crit damage focused, then you also want to, or crit rate focused, you also want to crit damage your artifacts on the S3. So Huts has been one of those units for siege defense only. Can see him being used in some siege offenses. RTA also tried a little bit of shine over there, but he kind of fell off everywhere. So I'll give him just an 80. Most of the time it's just speed, HP, violent destroy for siege, or violent will for the other places. Piranha is the biggest stall in game for arena defense. This thing's animations are longer than the whole time span of the year 2026. Holy shit. So it's definitely a good arena defense. Siege offense, maybe. RTA, he's a really good last pick in RTA. He's arguably the strongest last pick in RTA. If your enemy cannot control him and doesn't have any cleanses, this thing will solo your whole match. This thing is absolutely really goated for that. So, but the how often can you pick him? Not that often. So for that reason, I give him an 85 and not higher than 85. But I think 85 is already pretty generous to this unit. But he's crazy good for his provokes and his healing and those kind of shenanigans going in. Most of the time he's built just on speed, defense, HP, or speed, crit rate, defense, and then just a lot of stats where you still have some accuracy. Don't have to go crit damage and that kind of stuff, but a little bit of damage is nice on him. Venton is something I do expect to get nerfed in the next balance patch in January. So if you're watching this video in late January or watching the tier list in late January, maybe you want to check out if he was already nerfed. I will mention that in the comments as I mentioned at the start. But he's crazy good in RTA. He is arguably on a stronger win rate / pick rate than Prime Oliver was, because he's sitting at like 54% win rate on like 50% pick rate. It's absolutely nuts. In arena defense, I've seen him being used as well. In siege defense, also seen him being used. There's one crazy hard counter, which we'll get to later. But yeah, he's just super good overall. It's just PvE things, not really. But he's good. I also have been using him in siege offense just because it's funny. But most common build for him is speed, HP, or speed, attack, or a combination of attack and HP. And it depends on, like, if you want to play more bruiser, you care less about accuracy, you care more about your HP. If you care more of just winning in 1 or 2 turns, you want to go higher accuracy, higher attack. And then his artifacts are additional damage by attack, but also HP and defense in that order. Or, well, I would say attack, then speed, then HP. But yeah, very strong unit overall. 95 is what he gets. And via will in any kind of shape or way. Chakra is one of those units that is pretty substantial in this pair. Mainly, I have used it a little bit in siege offense. It's not crazy good in there, but it does have some value. And then you pair it up with just like Chakra into 2 pushbackers, because Chakra has a pretty good strip by itself. In RTA, it's still a good unit. So for those 2 values, I place it in 85. Most of the time is this pair, but you can also place it on Swift. And you don't care about any crit rate or crit damage. It's just pure on speed, tankiness, and high accuracy. If you are like Pooh, the SWC champion of 2025, 100 rest on this thing. It's actually really nasty to get him to 100 rest as well. But yeah, 85 for that unit right there. Moving on to a Irene. Irene kind of fell off meta because there's less things for her to counter. It's not necessarily that she's bad, but it's just less things for her to counter. But she's mainly good into like those Gobso, Ragdolls, blah, 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 RTA kind of comps. Then she's still pretty strong. So 75 for that. Most of the time you just want to put her on Swift, like a 200 Swift, 210 Swift kind of set, 100 rest, tanky, those kind of shenanigans. Bludja, I think, also got buffed this year. Bludgeon became really good for her pushbacks and then also silencing. Is really good in siege offense, can be used for arena offense. The only issue she has is that she has a crit awakening and therefore she will crit on Camillas. You cannot keep her at 15 crit. If she was just 15 crit, she would be a lot better into Camillas in the first place. But she's still pretty decent in that in general. Also siege offense, the siege offense that I mentioned before with the Tomoe and tricks. She also fits in if you don't have another Amber. So that's, or you use your Amber somewhere else because Amber is that versatile. She can be used for that later. You can also use her towards RTA hits as well. So I'll give her an 85. She's a little bit more around good everywhere, but not crazy good anywhere, I would say. Layla, definitely a unit that has been making a lot of value. Has been used a fair bit in siege defense, mainly next to a Tarnisha. I have seen it in arena defense as well. It is a really interesting arena defense with Leo and then a Berghild. So Leo will make the Berghild always move. Then because of the Berghild moving, you have a potential for an armor break or a stun, which will make the Layla guaranteed move. It is an interesting one right there. It only works with the Berghild in that kind of shape or way specific, I would say. But then there's still more options to do that. Plus, really good RTA unit. Most of the time just built on Despair. Will Despair pretty fast, faster than the rest of your team. I'll give a 90 to Layla for that sense. Additional damage artifacts, which you're aiming for. Jongnam is actually healing more. It's cycling less still. I think it is kind of a underrated-ish unit that might make a little bit of a comeback in 2026. But he's also just facing off that there's so many other good units just doing his job better, more or less. So I would say speed, HP. HP is his most common build. He is easy to build because of his high base speed. That is definitely a thing. But it's mainly RTA, and he's not really the craziest in RTA at the moment. So I'll just give him that. Mugwong is one of those units for just siege offense. I've seen it in some siege defense, but wasn't a really big fan. Big issue with him is, like, sure, he destroys HP based on the dots, but therefore you don't kill any fast. It's just really nice against teams that have HP damage scaling. But that is mainly, let's say, for example, Lamila, which is the wrong element for this dude. So against Björnchels or Lamilas, he's pretty decent, but outside of that, he's just that. So I would give Mugwang, out of all of the fire bruisers with dots, Mugwang is, in my opinion, one of the worst. Björnchel, still somewhat of a defense unit about everywhere. Can use in RTA, can use in siege offense, can use in siege defense, can use in arena offense, can use in siege defense. It's a little bit everywhere, but I feel like it's also kind of ass everywhere. So he's kind of that. He guaranteed crits, so therefore crit damage on the 4, and then HP on the 6 speed on the 2 in the most case. You could also go for an HP on the 2 and then just make him a Foon nuker right there. That's definitely an option. Twin Angels definitely did take a pretty hard hit. Water Twin Angels, I really dislike this unit. It's used to be good for siege defense, but I haven't seen it in siege defense ever since nerf, and that makes sense. RTA, it can be used, but it's really not doing its job well in RTA. So I'll just give that a 70. It's also the weird position, like, do you want to throw a fastest fire set at it, which would make sense, but you don't want to do it. But for like the tuning, it would make sense. Fastest Swift really doesn't make sense, so it's kind of just awkward. Fire Twin Angels is actually making a little bit of a comeback. People are pairing up Fire Twin Angels together with a Chandra and then a Sekhmet in RTAs, what I've seen from like Korean players and stuff. I can see some value in that still. So Fire Twin Angels, I'll give that an 80. Mainly RTA usage, but you can also use it for arena or for siege offense here and there, I would say. But I can still see some value because of the immunity, the cooldown resets, decent damage, attack buff, blah, blah, blah. I can see Fire Twin Angels still being decent. Fire Twin Angels never really cared about S1 attack bar boosting that much in the first place. So main build is still probably speed, HP, additional damage, artifact style by attack and that kind of stuff, or speed, attack, HP, or anything along those lines. Wind Twin Angels, I definitely do think that they also took a little bit more of a hit by the attack bar gain being reduced. But I'll give that a 75, mostly a Despair unit. But also since Chakra came in, Chakra kind of wants, or they share the similar runes for like Despairing and stuff. And I would rather put those runes on the Chakra than I put them on the Wind Twins. This Geralt thingy, I actually never freaking use this thing. It's somewhat okay-ish, but it's not really crazy good as a nuker. Then we have this one, which is also a dot unit, I would say kind of similar level as Rika. If you don't have your Rika or your Bloodsha or your Nora anymore, then this is definitely one of those options you could go for. Siege offense hit or arena offense hit, or even for like TOL dotting, it's still pretty substantial, decent unit right there. This one, however, I think I've never used it. Some people did actually mention that he's good right now, but never used it. I think he's ass. Siri, however, Siri goes straight to... Siri, in a lot of cases, for Siege, is better than Sonya. For arena offense, to kill Vanessa's is better than Sonya, because that's what she does. RTA is definitely worse, by a really long shot. So I'll give Siri, for that reason, a 95. Just speed crit damage attack, full on the Swift, and then you want to go for speed increasing effects in most cases. I also have seen a fair bit of people use this right now for some siege offense hits, but it's definitely worse because it's harder to build. But in the end, can perform the same nuke, it's just that you need to have the 100 crit rate. That's a big issue. But it can be pretty good, plus you have the cycle from the S3, and I think the cycle works right now, but I haven't tested it, but I'll give that an 80 for there. The Water Jennifer is an Oblivion unit that is... Or does she have Oblivion? Wait, she did Oblivion, right? Yeah, Oblivion on the S2, but S3 is the stun and the buff block. That was the... Or now the cleanse block. Which is an okay unit with the Layla Tomoe Hey Gang kind of combo, but outside of that, not really used that much. So I would say that a Beth probably does her job a little bit better by also... Or not necessarily that specific job she would probably do better, but Beth is also more usable in like other things for arena setup on armor breaks and blah 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 shenanigans, that kind of way. So probably just like Fio or Swift build on this thing. Tarnisha, however, which is the Fire Jennifer, is really good. It's a meta thing for siege defense. I could see it being used in RTA. It's not as common, but I can see it being used in RTA. Siege offense sometimes as well, but definitely siege defense. She has Oblivion and has a small speed lead on 21, which is really good. Most of the time it's just Fio, HP, accuracy, or Fio, HP, with Will and those kind of shenanigans in there. It's also really strong paired together with Layla. Like the two of them is really darn strong as well. I might make the argument for one up Layla. Yeah, I think I one up Layla because she's also more defense value in multiple places. Yeah, I would say so. But for her, it's not as good in RTA. Like some people did try to use her in RTA, but she doesn't shine as much in RTA, but still good in other places. Triss, I would say just a nuker, but a Zyros or something like that just does it way better. So it's kind of at least your level of just a nuker, and yeah, that's just your go with that. Kit is a weaker version of a Veronica. I've seen some people claim that he's good, but outside of Lest, I've never seen this thing being used ever. And Lest uses everything, so that's just kind of an unfair statement as well. Trix. Well, Trix, as mentioned before, is sitting in the strongest offense with Amber, Tomoe, and Trix, which is just the strongest siege offense there is. It is part of the strongest arena offense there is. Can be used in RTA, but in RTA, I think he has a little bit too many Hey Gang issues. But yeah, I give Trix a 95 for that reason. I feel like it's a little bit higher value than the Tomoe because of sitting in the strongest arena offense, whereas Tomoe technically doesn't sit in the strongest arena offense. It is a replace option in there, but I think that Trix has more value in there. So Trix gets a 95. Most of the time, it's just built on Despair, additional damage artifacts. You could go max resistance, you could go max security, but in most cases, it doesn't even matter. Jack shit just dies anyways. Just be tanky, high enough additional damage artifacts, and you're good to go. This thing, I guess it's called Storm. He's very ass. Like, he used to be a somewhat counter to Odin's or something. Right now, I think he's a counter to absolutely nothing. So I just put him over there. Same thing with this. It's the multi-hitting Itadori that can do a little bit of damage, but not a big fan. I'll give it a 60. Fire Itadori, though, is actually pretty nice. It is a nuker pretty similar to Zyros. Like, anytime you use Zyros, Itadori is as close as it gets to one another. I had the Itadori on fire on my alt. It is one of the best arena nukers. So anytime you would like to use the Zyros, you can use Itadori, and it's pretty much almost as good. Zyros is better for the reset, but Itadori is better for the cleanup. because he can absorb attack bar and then do another hit. And he can destroy HP and therefore make some units deal less damage, such as Lamilas and Byunchils and those kind of good stuff. So good old 80 for that one. Nobara on water actually got the extra hit, this buff. Yeah, like less balance, but she got the buff. I haven't used her too much, but I feel like she's actually kind of a Rika level, but better. Because there's a lot of Rikas. Like, Rika has a Bloodja, Rika has a Fire Geralt, Rika has a Mugwang, Rika has a Nora. There's a lot of fire, Rika has a Balanus. Like, there's a lot of daughters on fire. Whereas on water, it's not as common. Sure, there's Amber, which is absolutely best in slot. But she's pretty substantial in siege offenses, arena offenses, and those kind of things herself. So, and I could see her being used more in RTA as well because of the suppression. But especially siege offense, she's really good siege offense. So I should actually be using her a little bit more. She's definitely on Bloodja level for me right there. Then we have Aya, which Aya goes 95, or do we go higher on Aya on 95? It's crazy good in RTA. It is really good in siege offense. It is really, really good in arena offense. It's not good in any PvE thing. Especially, I mentioned it before, double Aya or double Nobara, Leo, Angela, press auto. And it's super freaking fast because Ayas will bring them to 1 HP. Angela will give the shields. Because of the shields, they hit on the shield, final HP dead, they're done. Like, it's super, super strong. Plus, in RTA, really strong as well. Build for her is Vionem. You want to go 15 resistance and not a single bit of resistance more. I don't recommend to go for Will. I've seen some people go Will anti-Joe Guns in RTA. Just don't draft her into a Joe Gun. That's just the main thing. And Joe Gun is not super common anymore out there. Plus, it's super weird to be like, oh, I put Will runes on it so she cannot get debuffs. You want to get those debuffs on her. So 95 for that. Magumer. Most hated unit in RTA for a lot of people. He's not really good in Siege or Arena, but he's really, really darn good in RTA. So I'll give him an 85 for that. Like, I'm not going to give too much crazy value. He's kind of like the Oliver, Shiho, those kind of levels for that. Can be used in Arena defense, but it's not super common in Arena defense, I would say. So I'll give that an 85 for Megumi. Most of the time is speed, HP or speed, HP accuracy, but going for crit rate 4 on him kind of makes him add up the damage because he takes that many turns that all of his chip damage, if he does like 11k on an S2 on a Death Break, it kind of adds up over time. But 85 for the Megumi right there. Then we have the other Megumi, which is the one that is a pair for Katarina, attack buff, immunity kind of style. Kind of a stat level for me. It's just like a speedy, swifty unit. That's all there is to it. Nothing too crazy. Water Gojo. Well, if we're talking challenge arena Water Gojo with crazy artifacts, then he's really good. But in most cases, he was kind of trying to be the Oliver counter by not being attack bar pushback. It's maybe a Venton-ish counter by not being pushed back by Venton. But I feel like most of the time he's not really doing his job that well. So, and I think he's just RTA, but not crazy in RTA. So I'll give that Gojo is 75 right there. Fire Gojo. I give Fire Gojo definitely a little bit more value because Fire Gojo is in siege defense in a bunch of places. Most common is Odin, Adriana, Fire Gojo. I could see it being used in, well, arena defense, not really. It is also one of the better units in Temple of Chaos outside of the water one. So that's definitely a pretty substantial value in there. So I'll give Gojo a... Yeah, I think an 80 is fine. Do I want to... No, it's kind of like similar to Momo. Can be placed in some defenses, not that many, and is really good in the Temple of Chaos. So 80 right there. Then Gojo on Winds is decent for RTA, but it's just decent for RTA, and I feel like he kind of lacks in RTA as well. He's not super, super good in RTA. So I'll give him a 75. Maybe I would change my mind if I were to use him more often, or maybe even less. But the big issue is, like, sure, you can 3 turns provoke, but you can also get resisted on a 3 turns provoke. That's a pretty big resistance on an RTA shenanigans right there. Steal on the S2 is kind of nice, though, but I'm not too sure about him. I'm not too sure. I'll give him 75. The Draken Warrior Water. To be honest, I barely remember what this thing does. I think it's the threat state one. I haven't seen it being used ever, so 60. Same for this one. This one is the strip, which is a terrible strip. Not great. Draken Warrior Fire. Well, that used to be... just going back to last year, Draken Warrior Fire was sitting here all the way at the bottom. Draken Warrior Fire this time around is sitting straight at 85. And why? He's an absolute best in slot Temple of Chaos, non-replaceable, insta G3 if you put your runes to it kind of unit. Plus, you can actually use him in Arena Offense and Siege Offense and RTA. No, actually, like, fuck it, I'll place him in here. If you really force him in RTA, Siege, or Arena, it is usable. You kind of maybe need for RTA a Wu Yong and a Yeonhong. But for these two, there are some options where you can just boost him and then make him do an insane nuke. So that's that, plus like the insane value of Temple of Chaos that just gives you so much more rewards by just having this one unit. Plus, you can also use him in Subjugation and a bunch of other things like the Rift Raids. He also absolutely destroys all of the Rift Raids and everything like that. So I'll give him a 90. How to go from lowest tier to almost highest tier in one year. Not bad. Tanjiro's. So this is the one that absorbs, I think. I haven't seen anyone use this, so I think it might have some value, but not really. And this is the one with the threat state. I feel like it's even worse, so not really right there. Then we have this one, which is the anti-stun. I have seen some people try it in RTA, but I'm not too sure about it. It's maybe a vampire unit that can kind of work as like anti-stuns kind of shenanigans, but is it really that crazy good? I am not too sure. It could maybe be like a anti-Megami unit, but I haven't really seen it too much. Then the other one was the... I would have to double check her as well. That's the one with the decreased attack bar, stuns, and block beneficial effects. Yeah, it doesn't really add too much to the table as well. I feel like a 65 on that. Then we have the Zenitsu's. Water one is the one that does gain extra attack bar on stunning enemies. Can see it kind of being used for RTA, but the people that used in RTA was not that crazy fond of it as well. So that's that. The Wind one is definitely a lot stronger because Wind one is good for siege defense as well. RTA, you don't see it as much, but it is still usable in RTA, whereas it's not crazy good, but it's usable. So yeah, I think like 85 is kind of fine with it. It's not really crazy good though, but most of the time it's just speed, crit damage, attack, or speed, crit rate, attack, or anything along those kind of lines with. Could go additional damage artifacts, could do other things. Inosuke, also known as a water pig, it's pretty good for a speed lead and then a strip into a Venton Layla kind of style. But I would say just RTA. You're not going to see it in Siege, you're not going to see it in Arena or any of those kind of things. So Inosuke, just an 80, and it's still one of those units like it just pushes back one unit. I'm not the biggest fans of it still, but I've seen some people have good success with the Inosuke on fire. I absolutely don't remember what that thing does, but I think it was pretty ass. Yeah, it's a selfish Nyx passive with a terrible S1 and terrible S2. 50 it is. Lamila, however, Lamila goes straight to 100. Lamila is absolutely worth of 100 tier right there because, well, she's pretty much good in everything that's not PvE. Like, that's just the main thing it is. Arena offense, she's once again seated in the best arena offense in-game. She's in multiple of better arena or siege defenses in-game right now. She can place in arena defense as well. She's really good in RTA. She's really good in siege offense. She's just crazy good in so many things. It's just PvE, not really. But Lamila is absolutely really good. Maybe in RTA... No, I think even in RTA, it's also one of the most consistent AoE branders in-game, which is really insane. While still having an S2 that also does insane work. So no, I'll give Lamila 100. I think she's really, really darn strong. Yeah, do we fit that? Or do we maybe one down her? Well, I would one down her because of siege offense. I don't see her that much in siege offense. Arena offense, yes. RTA, yes. And defenses, yes. But I would maybe one down her for siege offense not being that commonly used. But Lamila's super strong. Main thing you want to aim for is shit ton of HP, shit ton of speed. That's all you need to know. A little bit of accuracy is fine, but their S3 is that many multi-hits that she will hit that regardless anyways. And then additional damage on artifacts both sides. That's just the main thing that you aim for. Very, very strong unit. This was called like a Theodora, right? Was that Theodora? What's the name of this thingy? Yep, Theodora. Does do HP scaling on all 3 skills right now, which was one of the things she was lacking. I've seen some people kind of use it in some RTA shenanigans for like pushbacks, but I wasn't a big fan. I was not a big fan. This thing as well, which is sometimes used by some people that like to stall the living shit out of you in RTA. I've used it in arena defense. Still would rather use a Camilla. You could maybe see it in a siege offense of like a stall kind of thing as well, or like trying to survive thing. Maybe that, but just like full-on tank kind of stuff. I'll give it 75 for trying. Then we go for Gideon, which is actually pretty decent for the amount of damage he can do. I haven't used mine ever, but I think it's one of those units that can do a pretty substantial amount of damage on just his S1 and that kind of value. So he's a little bit decent everywhere, but he's not really crazy good anywhere. So could use him for like a auto arena offense if you don't have a Feng Yang. Could use him for some siege offenses, could use him some in RTA, but he's not really crazy good anywhere. But he's usable everywhere outside of RTA or outside of PV. Well, let's give you a 75 for that reason. Then we have this fire thing, which I recently pulled it. I absolutely have no clue what you do. Oh yeah, that's the last stand. That's the survivability nonsense that he does. He's ass. Like, okay, maybe a little bit less ass, but he pretty ass. Like, you survive with 1 HP and an endure, and then you die after. GG's, like, useless. How about the other one? You, and then you. What did you do? Attack power, and then defense. Yeah, this is the defend on all targets, excluding yourself. You cannot even defend yourself. Ass. No. Can see some values, maybe, but not really a big fan. Going into some of the other new units. Which one was this again? Nina, you were the one with continuous damage. Increase your bar when the enemy... Can see that being used for some siege offenses, but it's not really something crazy. Hwarang, I think Hwarang... This thing is trying to get a weird thing in where you can always land... Or, yeah, you can always land this, but you could still miss it. That's just... Like, if he gets a guaranteed land on this skill, then we're maybe talking. But outside of that, I don't think so. Fun fact is, he goes through the Acroma or... what's it called? Zenizek passive. Like, there's a bunch of passives he just straight goes through. So that's kind of interesting, but yeah, just kind of ass. Then we have the other Hwarang, which is damage dealer, which is just straight up deals no damage dealer. He's ass. Waterfall is good-ish for RTA, but I feel like in the current meta with like I played this thing before, and then sure, I was supposed to hit this thing all the time, but I had that many AoEs with like with the Gojo and like the Phantom and like other things, or like the Moor, and this whole team just died. So I'm not a big fan of the Waterfall, but most of the time it's just built like super tanky, Fio, maybe 100 res, and then on will or anything like that. I don't even know. This Fireball is being used as like a Molong kind of style of nuker. Not the biggest of fans, but could see used mostly on Swift, I would say, but I'll give that a 75. Then the other Paul, this thing is absolute garbage, right? That's the one that was supposed to maybe counter a... Yeah, if you get increased cool times, then you gain bar. Yeah, that's just absolutely ass. Like, oh yeah, your allies got increased cool times. Let's hit a low chance provoke right now. I don't know. Pretty ass on that one. Fire Jin, however. I'm still scared that this thing gets a speed lead. That's the main thing for me. Pretty good in arena defense. Siege, not really. RTA, here and there. I would say mainly arena defense, but I'll give it an 80 for that. Because he's kind of lacking the damage output, but he can be pretty annoying in arena defense. So I'll give an 80 for that. Then the other Jin, which is the Jin that gives the multi-hits on Oblivion, like 5 times hit, Oblivion, attack power. This does absolutely fucking jack all. This hit is so bad. I'll give it a 60. Next, the Heihachi. Heihachi is actually usable in SF. But outside of that, pretty mediocre. It's just an SF. But he's not even... Is he arguably best in slot for SF? No, Cordelia becomes best in slot for SF, so I even give you a -1 for that. Then next up, we have the Cecilia, which actually has a pretty decent hit. It does have multiple hits on Death Break, which is not that bad, but also then increased damage. It is not that bad. I can see it being used. For me, it's kind of a Kamamir level. Then we have Cynthia, which is actually really good for Siege. The moment that your enemy has multiple pushbacks, such as Vanton in Siege, then this thing is pretty substantially stupid in your Siege offense. Outside of that, I don't think it's not really worth anything. It's just a Siege offense. 75 for that, but you could keep multiple of that for that reason. Then we have Daisy. Daisy is the one with the weird strip. Yeah. Too bad that it hits, so therefore it's not as crazy. I would say Daisy's probably a 65 for me. It doesn't really work that much. Then we go into the new Justice units. First of all, Neropia. This is the one with the cleanses. Haven't really seen her used all too much. People did tell me that whether you cleanse or not, you will be resetting full cooldown, which is kind of nice. I haven't tried it myself, but that's apparently the case. Yeah, Stu is kind of like in the mid, so I'll give her a 75 for now. I think she will be usable at some point. Then we have the Fire one, which of course is also at the top over here. Fire one was the one that removes all beneficial effects and harmful effects on the enemies. And then, yeah, okay, that's really weird skill. I'm not too sure about this one at all. I feel like that she's not really... I'll give it a 65. I don't really... Maybe I'm misunderstanding her. Maybe I'm just not seeing the value in her, but I haven't seen anyone use this at all. That's yeah, it's just too much has to happen for that actually to be good. Maybe 70 for some potential. But then we see the Wind one, and Wind one has a AoE pushback AoE Oblivion, which is really strong and arena defense and inter-server defense. And for that reason, I'll place her at an 80. I think that she is actually really strong. She's kind of the free-to-play Dark Gojo version in the game. So that is all for these units. What was in the 100 last time around? Rika was in the 100. Okay, Amber was lower. No, I definitely don't feel... Yeah, I feel that the current state's definitely changed a bit in that. Still some units that were seated at the top, still at the top, but definitely also a whole bunch of units that were way higher before are now lower. Where was Lamila seated at before? Was Lamila even in this thing? Yeah, Lamila was... Yeah, this one. I'm curious to see where Lamila was located at. Lamila was sitting at 80. So this was back in the time where she did not have skill 1 of HP scaling just yet. So Lamila is absolutely really strong. So we could actually see last time around, this one got to the top, this one got to the top, this one got to the top, that one got pretty high up. So we have 4 units over here that were sent up. This one was also sent up halfway and then also nerfed halfway later. So if we look at the value of these units right now, make your guess which one is going to go to the top. That's going to be the big question. Could be one of those Quarangs or Pauls or Tanjiros even, or the Beetle Guardians. There's a lot of options for that. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of those units of 60 and below might end up somewhere at the top. This is going to be the tier list for 2026 globally. As mentioned, every time that there's a balance patch, I will go back to the video and then adjust some of the things, saying like, okay, let's say that Vanton got a super hard nerf. I will say it's like, oh, now he's like more of an 85 or anything like that. Well, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. It's definitely lengthy enough. Subscribe if you haven't yet and like the video. And see you as always in the next one. The next coming days, I will be doing also the LD5, LD4, Net 4 tier list coming up. So definitely do not miss out on those. See ya later.